One of the first pieces Britten composed for his newfound love was a song cycle. He used a collection of sonnets by the great artist Michelangelo.
I can't think of anything in later song cycles which you could call love music. Always the subject is sort of oblique and at the edges, but the Michelangelo does really celebrate this with pleasure and frankness and bravura that he never found again.
It was an amazing relationship between two very remarkable men. In a very high proportion of Britten's works, Peter is there, embedded in the music, not exactly as the only begetter, but certainly as a very major inspiration.
The earthquake is not satisfied at once.
The vocal pieces were written, so many of them with my voice in mind, that I could just try it out on him. And there, if he'd written a difficult phrase, I could just see whether I could sing it or not. And if I could adequately, he probably kept it in. If I couldn't or thought it was too difficult, I may be said to have vetted from my own point of view.
The thing that always moves me about singers is that the voice is something which comes naturally from their personality and is a vocal expression of their personality. I loathe what is normally called a beautiful voice, because to me it's like an overripe peach which says nothing.
The nibbling mouse is not asleep, but he goes beep, 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 beep.
I think Britten was aware more than any other composer, apart perhaps from Francis Poulenc, of the colour of the human voice and the way registers work in the human voice, simply from the fact that he works so closely with a singer, and in his case actually lived with a singer. You can see in all of the many, many wonderful pieces he wrote for Peter Pears that he's exploiting the very particular colour of Peter Pears's voice, but also exploiting the more general register features of a tenor voice, I suppose.
Life in America provided distraction and some employment, but Britten was feeling increasingly uneasy. Disturbed by events in Europe and missing his friends and family, he wanted to go home.
This year in England, people prayed for a dark and windswept night. On nights like these, the German bombers stay at home. A stormy night is an ally of England.
Memories of Suffolk and a feeling of rootlessness forced Britten and Piers into a decision.
We began to feel a tug about wanting to go home and do whatever was to be done. And at the same time, Ben happened to get hold of a copy of The Listener, in which was printed an article about Peter Grimes and Crabbe. And the reading of this article stirred Ben so deeply that he felt he couldn't stay in America anymore. And it took us 6 months or more before we could get a boat to take us back to England.
On the boat back from America, I started setting English poetry all over again. And I think the Serenade was part of the whole business of falling in love with England all over again and falling in love with English poetry.
And the ideal country retreat awaited him, the old mill at Snape, near the Suffolk coast. Overjoyed at being home, he went straight to work.
I think Britten returned from America at the absolute peak of his form. He was technically confident in his language, and the 10 years or so afterwards, a bit longer, till the late 1950s, surely has all his greatest, best loved and most successfully realised music in it. The Serenade inaugurates that.
Written in April of 1943, while working on his opera Peter Grimes, the Serenade is, to put it simply, a 25-minute piece setting 6 poems on the theme of night. Each poem takes us further towards the moment of sleep.
Nocturne, please, yeah. That's the second song. Ian wants to do this one pianissimo, so we...
He obviously understood what constitutes effective string writing, and he did play the viola himself, which obviously will have given him an insight into what works and what is going to make the instrument sound at its best.
Get right on the fingerboard, and don't bite it too sharply, please.
In the Nocturne, Tennyson depicts dying echoes as a metaphor for the fleeting nature of man's existence.
Oh, hark, oh, hear how thin and clear, and thinner, clearer far